Joining us now is Lori Gilhousen, right?
Yes.
Which you've been on the show before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, you're the diabetes specialist at ECMC.
Mm-hmm.
And I have gotten questions already.
Really?
When I announced that you were going to be here. And both of the persons that called in are diabetics.
Okay.
One gentleman mentioned that he eats 3 meals a day and then has a snack, I think, at one point.
Yeah.
And ever since he's been on that regimen, he has been fine.
Yeah.
He eats breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then takes his medication, I think he said, at dinner time. But he goes, he has not had a problem with that. So it can be controlled.
Oh, yeah. It can be.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the hardest part of it is to remember that the meal planning and adding motion to your day, we just kind of try to not say diet and exercise because those are dirty words, but it's a meal choice. And the idea with the 3 small meals and that snack is if you give a small hill of food, it's easier for your body to cope with it. It's easier for your meds to work instead of jumping in the deep end of food-wise, sugar-wise, you know, fill up the tank too full and top it off too high. You're kind of drowning in extra sugar all day. So that's why we kind of say if you can do 3 smaller meals, that's better. Chunks where the meals are too far apart, because once in a while they do end up too far away, that snack helps keep from getting the gas tank too empty.
The other question came from a lady that, and it's unfortunate, she said she understands the 3-meal proposition, but she can only do dinner, and I didn't ask her why she offered it. She goes, because I can't afford the other 2 dinners. She goes, what do you do to compensate for that?
You split that 1 meal into 2.
Really?
Very
2, not 3, 2.
Well, you could do 2 meals and 2 snacks, and a lot of times you got to remember what we're drinking counts just as much as what we're eating.
Okay.
You know, because so sometimes I've had people tell me, oh, I don't touch breakfast, but then as we're talking, they kind of clue me in that they're having a glass of juice, but because they're drinking it, they don't count it as food.
But it is.
But it is food. I mean, eat the piece of fruit if you could, but, you know, a piece of it is too, you know, circumstances are rough, you know, and you make the food pantries work to your advantage. What few food dollars you have, make them count. And, you know, take a good look at serving sizes.
As vegetables and fruits, then they are acceptable?
Oh, most definitely. The vegetables are split out in 2 different groups. There's the group that's non-starchy, so they are more fibrous, so they're more filling. But they tend to be the ones we don't exactly like to eat all the time.
Right.
You know, or the other challenge, though, in the non-starchy fruit vegetable section is we drown them in butter. Or we drown them in dressing or sauces. You know, a hint for flavor is one thing, but when you're putting a whole stick of butter in a whole pot of vegetables, you kind of defeated the whole purpose of eating that vegetable. You know, or if you're keep adding salad dressing until you've got a lake of salad dressing in the bottom at the end.
Yeah.
It kind of defeated the purpose of eating that salad. The fruits, they are a carbohydrate, but they also don't have fat. And they have vitamins and minerals. And when you're eating it fresh, like right off the tree or not processed, the serving size is larger. You know, if you're doing raw vegetables, a whole cup of them is only 5 grams of carbs. If you're cooking them, a half a cup becomes 5 grams of carbs. In the fruits, usually a 4 to 6 ounce, you know, about the size of a tennis ball or a baseball, it's 15 grams of carbs. You know, so it's a good, here's a fruit, you could use it as the dessert, there's no fats, but they still count. And the 4 ounces of fruit juice is still 15 grams of carbs, but who stops at 4 ounces?
Right.
You know, that's the wet your whistle.
I wasn't eating breakfast for the longest time. And there were times I would come to work here, and one of the nurses actually from your hospital said, you know, your lunchtime, because of the time I get up and stuff, is probably 8:30 in the morning, because that's, you got like 3 or 4 hours in, and that's basically your lunchtime. So if you're extending that to 1 to 2, she goes, you're not helping yourself here, because you're getting overly hungry and you're dragging it out. So lately I've been having breakfast, and I don't have a lot. I just have like one scrambled egg, believe it or not, just a little bit.
Right.
Half a piece of toast, and a glass of juice. That's all I have, and that's all I need, and I come in and I'm fine.
Right.
And my stomach's not growling during the show and all that stuff.
And you've got the energy to keep up with the phone
That'll-
and the computer
that'll-
and all of the cameras.
That'll take me till about 10:30, 11 o'clock, you know,
Yeah.
and if I'm not hungry, I won't eat until whenever, you know, until
Right.
I'm ready. But I can understand, and I'm healthy. I don't have diabetes, but I can see if you're not following that schedule, it would cause some problems.
It makes it difficult. The other challenge too is because we're so focused on calling our first meal of the day breakfast, people whose days start a little bit later in the day will tell me they don't have breakfast, but it's because their breakfast is where we would traditionally call it lunchtime. Well, that's okay. So your breakfast is at noon. Because
Right.
most times when you talk to people that have that later start in their day, they are eating their lunch at our supper time. They're eating a supper at where, you know, someone who starts their day early. You know, and some people's schedules start horribly early. Where something very light just to get the gas tank started.
Right.
You know, but having those fuel deposits throughout the day. The other challenge too is even if you don't have diabetes, you still need to monitor how much you're sticking on a plate because you don't want to burn out the system any faster than you have to.
Right.
You know, so if you might have it showing up later on in life, being more balanced as much as you can is going to buy you more time and put it farther down the road.
We are heading, of course, into the holidays, and for me, I don't know about you, but this is the time where I could put on weight if I don't watch it because of the cookies and the things that you get out there. For a person with diabetes, or even on the fringe of having diabetes, you probably would have to be very careful this time of year, right?
You know, the holidays get blamed for a lot of the extra poundage that
Right.
shows up in January when you go to your doctor's office for your beginning of the year physical and let's get things started. When you think about it, the holidays are 3 meals. You got Thanksgiving dinner,
Right.
you got Christmas dinner, and you got New Year's Day. There's only 3 meals there. So
It's easy to blame it.
it's easy to blame it. You're right. It's the time of the year where it's the only time you make certain foods. So do them in moderation. But remember that the poundage didn't come from just one meal.
Very, well, yeah. And,
You know,
well,
and
see-
that's what happens. People will go, I made cookies and I had, you know, the recipe makes 4 dozen cookies.
Right.
Who's going to eat those 4 dozen cookies? You know, if you've got someplace you could give out the other 3 dozen, you got family, send it all home. You know, a lot of people with diabetes are going to get lovingly family and friends that say, here's sugar-free whatever because you have diabetes. Guess what? 90% of the sugar-free whatevers still have carbs. And a lot of sugar-free stuff has more fat and salt, which sinks your ship just as bad as the carbohydrate part of it.
Well, the other thing you got to look at too, Lori, is parties. You know, you go to probably more parties this time of year than you normally do.
Yeah, if you're lucky, you have parties to go to, and they all fall in the same week. You know, you have like 6 or 7 different places that are going to do a holiday get-together, and they all seem to fall within 1 or 2 weeks of each other, and you're kind of like, really? There was a whole 50-some days between Thanksgiving and the end of the year, but they all fall in that 1 week.
Yeah.
So one of the most important holiday tips is eat before you go. I mean, think about it. Sometimes the holiday get-togethers or reception things are later in the night. You know, they start more at 6 or 7. You know, the first thing they're offering is appetizers. Appetizers are notoriously high in fat and salt.
Right.
They're good, but if you go there hungry because you skipped lunch because you knew you were going to eat extra in the evening, you've set yourself up to eat way more of those appetizers and not enough of the better food at the dinner part of it. And when you're mingling too, you know, it's social situations. Sometimes you get nervous. You want your hands to have something to do.
Right.
Some tips say you bring the vegetable tray. Sometimes you might want to make your special food, but bring it so everybody else is eating it and you just get 1 serving of it. But yeah, you want to be careful when meals are going to be later. Still eat. And even if you blew your whole carb count at 1 meal, you still need the next meal. And mark it in your dog book to say, hey, this day was off the plan.
What about this, Lori, as we go into the new year, 2014? Um, do you have any tips that would prepare the person to, of course, everybody goes on that phantom diet after the first of the year that they don't use probably after 3 weeks, but
Right.
For the person out there that needs to watch, how would you go into the first year? And I thought this was funny because when I got the premise of this interview from Elaine yesterday, she goes, believe it or not, Lori is already preparing for 2014 to get things prepared to go into the new year. And I thought, but you know what? This year's gone by so fast. We're edging up on 2014 very quickly.
I am still in shock. It's December already.
Amazing.
And Christmas is just 2 weeks away,
Exactly.
not even a whole 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
One of the things to do at the end of the year is take a look back and see what's been working for you. I mean, honestly, sometimes you feel like nothing was working, but some things are working just fine. So give yourself that pat on the back that says, hey, I walked at least once a week. I want to get to 2 times a week next year. One of the things too is maybe take a look at the meal planning. What could you change? Some people are already stretched as far as they can go. It might be just adding the walk or spacing it out better. Something might be dropping down a plate size. If you've got a 12-inch plate, move down to a 9-inch plate.
That works.
Maybe, yeah, it's huge. I mean, it's so sad. I brought toys. I wasn't going to bring toys. So I was raiding my cupboard as I was leaving. I bought a set of dishes in the clearance rack a few years ago.
And they're in the Christmas spirit.
Yeah, we were in the holiday. It's this little snowman, so I figured he was a little longer than Christmas. He doesn't fit in my dishwasher. And granted, I never would fill the plate anyway, but just dropping down to the 9-inch plate, kind of like the salad plate.
There's a difference.
The 8 or 9. You're still going to see that better food choices as taller, more solid plate. On this guy, when I put my lovely little deck of card-sized piece of meat and fill it half with those non-starchy veggies we were talking about, and a fourth of it with my starch, you still see empty plate, so your brain sees empty you. Same idea in those buffet lines. Get those littler plates and take a little bit of 3 or 4 things, then it looks full. Instead of get the big plate and put one little cracker and cheese in the middle, and you're like, really?
You were the first one to introduce me to this a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I'll try it. Because I will say this, on Thanksgiving, we had the big plates.
Oh yeah,
and
you do.
It was packed, and I couldn't even eat it all. I couldn't even eat it. So, not that I do that every day, but I mean, so what I did was I went to the smaller plate. It's almost like a pasta bowl. It's not it's small.
Yeah,
it's not
right,
big. Boy, does it make a difference, because you get that thing filled up, and there's really not a whole bunch there. If you're talking your vegetable, maybe your potato or whatever, and a piece of meat, I mean, it fills it up, and and it satisfies you.
It does, and it is a hard change.
It sure is.
The first time you try to just even split your 12-inch, maybe it might be the plate you have right now, try putting more vegetables on it, and just splitting it out in those 3 portions and using your fruit off to the side. Now the new government plate plan has your fruit on the plate, so you get to have a little less vegetables. In the diabetes world, we're kind of like, still fill it up with the vegetables and save your fruit for the little piece of dessert.
Now, fruit has sugar in it. Is that harmful to a diabetic?
Actually, our body's only fuel is glucose, which is sugar. It's the only thing the brain will work with. It's the only thing that fuels the muscles to move and get you around the room. The challenge is you got to have enough to fuel your body functions and the walk that your heart needs. Not so much extra that it has to go to storage.
Right.
So carbs get demonized in the press, but it's about the volume. It's you got to have enough to have your body function, because if you don't eat enough to supply breathing and function, your body will eat your muscle that you just built on your walk across the street if you didn't feed it, so that it could fill that muscle back in, so it has the energy to go.
Okay.
But our challenge is, when we have a cup of something, we're usually having one of these guys. This is like 2.5 cups. If that was juice, that's enough carbohydrates for 2 meals.
Okay.
Better than 2 meals. You know, if you decide that you're going to break down and follow the food labels, when you say a cup, they mean a measuring cup, not your best cup out of the cup cupboard. I mean, this might be a nice cup of coffee or cup of tea, but not when you're measuring.
When my wife gives me soup on Sundays, when she makes the homemade soup stuff, she used to give me those, and I want a cup. I don't want a bowl of soup because I'm not going to finish it, you know. And look at the difference.
Huge difference. You know, so sometimes just taking a look at what portion you're putting on the plate.
Right.
That'll make your food dollars stretch farther too, because a lot of times that you go, oh, it's small, it must be one serving. When you look at the servings in the container, it might be 3. You know, there's quite a few things that'll say 2.5 servings, but the information is only for the serving size.
Right, right.
You know, some of the juices are really good at that. It's a small bottle. You can chug it down in 4 or 5 swallows, but it's 3 servings in there, or 2.5.
That could be actually 2 lunch and a dinner.
Yeah. Basically. It could be.
And you have to program yourself for this.
Right.
Now,
and
it doesn't happen overnight.
Exactly. It's one meal at a time. One food group at a time. Say this is the cup of soup you love. The next time you do it, do 3/4 of the container. That way it's almost to what you're used to, but not over the top.
And then drop it to half.
Yeah. And so like a week or 2, do that much. At the end of the week, slide it back. You know, another kickstart for into the new year is we have a program called Health for Life at the hospital. It sign-up start January 2nd. It's a 12-week program where every 2 weeks we have a little health talk tip. I have a free diabetes education, diabetes prevention program during the course, and they get exercise at the area fitness centers. You get they've got free passes to try them out. They've got discounted memberships during the program that runs from January to April. And it's $20, and all the money goes back to the prizes and the drawings and stuff. And we're recommitting the program to healthy weight loss, because a lot of times people look at it as, I'll do everything I can to lose 50 pounds so I win the game. But then you stop it. And unfortunately, you got to remember that weight loss and diabetes and cholesterol and blood pressure, once you get to your goal, now you got to fight to keep yourself at that goal. It's not just I lost my 10 pounds, I'm done. Because up goes, you know, the weight comes back like this.
Didn't the doctors and nurses do that at one time at ACMC? They had a contest. Maybe this is 2 or 3 years ago. Because I remember Dr. Chilcott was involved, and he lost a lot of weight, and they had a contest. But I think it was in kind of in lieu of one of the projects that you're kind of discussing now. And and I'll tell you what, a lot of the medical staff lost weight healthy way.
Right.
The healthy way.
Healthy way. And that's why we're rededicating that Health for Life program that's open to all of Ashtabula County to more healthy weight loss. Because some people were really trying to go, oh, how much can I lose? And then over the years we noticed that they're putting it back on within a few months, and it's like, that's not healthy.
Right.
You know, and that's the sad part now. I mean, probably last month you started seeing all the little checkout magazines at the checkout line at the grocery store saying, be in the dress for New Year's Eve night. You know, no. In the summer is the same thing.
Yeah, they do the same thing.
They do starvation diets. You know, and that's the thing with all meal planning. There's no one food that's going to cure everything. So if you're reading a diet that you're thinking, hey, January 1st, I'm starting this new diet, and it says the only food you can eat is A. Think about it. You know, what else is because all the foods contribute nutrition and vitamins and minerals and balance. You know, the time you feel like soup for lunch, it's just soup. So where's the rest of the plate? Because that's only one piece. So a lot of times you feel more satisfied if you maybe had a half a sandwich with that soup and that piece of fruit.
Or a salad.
Yeah, or a salad with that little soup and a little bit of fruit. You know, you want to have a combination of foods. You know, I mean, you could eat the whole bag of apples, but you're going to be hungry, and the rest of the body's saying, well, where's the protein and where's the other vitamins that come from these other foods?
Right. You have the spoons there.
Oh, Yeah, this is fun. Lots of recipes, a lot of measuring stuff will say teaspoon, tablespoon. These are the ones out of my drawer.
I get these two mixed up. Which is
Yeah,
what?
the little guy is the teaspoon.
Teaspoon.
This guy's the tablespoon, or that we kind of traditionally use as the soup spoon.
Right.
But when you're measuring something and it says a teaspoon, they actually mean your best baking dish teaspoon. So depending on what you're going to put in here,
Big difference.
could be huge. I mean, when you think about, here's a tablespoon, depending on what you're popping on the teaspoon out of your silverware drawer, this could be a tablespoon really easy. And this is another part where you think you're doing good, but double check yourself, because as people try to make changes to their meal plan, sometimes they start calling a half a cup, a cup, a half a cup.
Right.
So then they're wondering, well, geez, this meal plan isn't working, I'm hungry. Well, it's because you didn't give yourself enough food.
Uh-huh.
If you get not enough food, your system goes into the, I gotta save everything.
This is a tablespoon. I get.
That's supposed to be a tablespoon.
But you and I do not use these at the table, right?
Well, hopefully not. The idea is if you use a big spoon, like when you're doing cereal,
Yeah.
you'll eat more food in each spoonful. So they want you to use the smaller spoon to make it smaller servings to take longer to eat, so you get more time to fill up.
Okay. The only time I use these big spoons is when I'm taking...
Like serving.
Serving.
Yeah.
That's the only time I use
Yeah,
them.
and they make a serving spoon that's bigger.
They do.
Yeah, and the serving spoon, like in the buffet lines, when you're at these holiday parties, those can probably scoop out a half a cup easy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially if it's something nice and thick and it's sitting
Right,
on top. Half a cup easy. So if you want to kind of get a sample of everybody's, because sometimes in families, you got to have some of everybody's or you've offended someone.
Right.
So use your
How true is
spoon
that?
that you're going to eat with and take one spoonful of everything. Special meals are allowed to happen. These are lifelong changes, and you're going to have days or occasions where life is going to get in the way of your best intentions. 1 or 2 meals out of the week, that's not going to hurt anything. 1 week that's just blown out of the water does not ruin the other 51 weeks in the whole entire year.
Can I ask you, do you have diabetes?
Not yet,
Not yet.
but it's knocking on my door.
Is it really?
Oh yeah, because when I don't exactly balance out my plate really well, or I enjoy some like regular pop, hour or 2 later, my blood sugar's not where it's supposed to be.
Is that right?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm burning my system out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get as much motion as I should, even when I try to get myself over to enjoy my premier membership because of
Right.
being there, and
Right.
so it's knocking on my door.
I've had diabetic folks tell me that they're allowed to have a piece of pizza.
Oh yeah.
It's just the key word is moderation.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, if pizza's what's for dinner, get the 12-inch guy, and a fourth of it's going to be 60 grams carbs.
60.
Yeah. 2 pieces of a 12-inch pizza will be about 60 grams of carbs.
Okay.
So middle of the road for women is 45 at a meal. Middle of the road for men is 60. So, I mean, once you had the pizza, you've blown all your carbs. Or you've had that 1 extra, which, 1 meal's going to be 1 extra. Your breakfast was 1 short of what you needed. So it'll balance out at the end of the day. A lot of times we get hung up on, oh, I got to have every drop at this meal be just right. It's where are you at the end of the day? How did you balance out at the end of the week? And what kind of tools and help do you have? Some people are very good and have people that will help support them. Some people have people coming through their refrigerator. You did your part and bought the vegetables. Somebody else came through and ate them before you got to them.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you this, because I'm a little vague on this, just to have you clear it up. When I worked with a guy that had diabetes, very, very bad diabetes, because it got into amputation and that sort of stuff. There was times when he would nod off.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do.
Right.
And he told me when he was better, or his mother, it might have been his mom, told me that I should have went and got him orange juice. Is that correct?
When in doubt, if the person is more tired or not making sense, if they can still swallow, yes, a small orange juice. Because even if he's getting tired because he's too high, we can fix a high. But if you're low, on your way to even lower, to even too low to be safe, if you can safely swallow 4 ounces, half of this, not, if you're way out, the cup will be what you want. If you're less than 50, less than 60, you're going to want 30 grams of carbs to fix it, not just 15.
And that'll bring them back?
50 points. 30 to 50 points. Now, if he's on his way to lower faster, it may take a second cup. It's called
what if he can't swallow?
If you can't swallow, most people will have a medicine called glucagon. If they're that severe,
right.
He might have had a second thing handy somewhere in his lunch bag or on him that was a glucagon, which is a shot, and it's got wonderful step-by-step directions that says, how do you do this? When you work with someone that can get that low, saying, I'll help you out if I can, and let him show you when it's not an emergency, this is what I need. A lot of people with diabetes are uncomfortable sharing with their coworkers. And sometimes it's your coworker that's going to say, are you feeling okay? Because you're going to be, you get so used to the highs and the lows and the roller coaster ride that sometimes those first signals, that first year of diabetes, when you're an hour late for a meal, you know it.
Right.
5 years down the road, your body may not say, hey, I'm late, until you're low, when it takes twice as much to fix it, as opposed to just a little bit.
Now, here was a fellow that enjoyed Christmas. It was about this time of year. So he decorated it was when I was working at the newspaper then, he decorated the office. He did it all by himself. Got drastically sick.
Yeah.
Is that overdoing it?
Overdoing it.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, because, if you think about when you're decorating, or even if you get in the mood in the spring cleaning or winter cleaning and you want to scrub all the walls and you're going to paint a room, that's not a motion or an activity that you do every single day.
Right.
And it's so hard, especially when you've got chronic disease, because you'll have more down days than up days. And you get an up day and you're like, I want to wash every dish in this cupboard. Well, you got to take them down. That's energy you're not used to spending, so you don't have the muscle there to do it. Your meds are designed for your regular everyday activity, so they may be a little too much on the day that you're dragging boxes out and hanging stuff and lining stuff and putting Christmas trees to death. It's so much fun. And never mind moving them and making sure they don't fall and then putting it all away. So yeah, changes in your activity. Travel sometimes will make your numbers run a little higher.
Really?
Blood pressure and blood sugar both. Because, it's more that stress of driving. It's snowing now. That's stressful. You're sitting. So at home you might be moving around more. When you're sitting, you're not. When you're visiting, sometimes you're spending more time sitting too than walking around as well. So a lot of times it's finding ways to put a little bit of exercise or motion, not exercise, motion, just adding more motion to the day, steps to the day.
Lori, I now that I think about that, what you just explained to me, I think the guy lost a month of work after that. And all it was like 2 or 3 hours of doing what he was doing, and then he kind of went downhill after that. I don't even know if he came back to work, now that I think about it.
Well, the sad thing to remember with all chronic disease is it's progressive. And you fight the good fight as best as you possibly can. And working with your team, you got to work with your healthcare team. You've got to do the homework. And that's the hardest part of all, is do your own homework and say, what's happening? He might have been having spells where he was getting lows. He might have had spells where he was running too high. And one visit up to the machine saying hi to you, it's not the problem. It's how many days of the week does it say hi to me? How long does it stay up there? And what have I done to fight that or figure out what's going on?
I wish I would have had this education back then, because it certainly would have changed my whole process of how I would have handled the situation. Because I remember him going out to his car and passing out in there, and I'm thinking, oh man, he shouldn't be driving, but what do I do? And I was totally unprepared.
Yeah.
Now I would know more about it,
And in all due respect, we know more about how diabetes actually works and affects your body more now than we did even 15, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Every 4 or 5 years, it seems that we find new pieces of the puzzle. That's why a lot of the new focus is on the fat content of your day, right alongside the carbohydrate content of your day, because they're finding by taking that broader picture that they're finding there's more pieces to the puzzle than just sugar. You know, and that's the hardest thing, because for the last 15, 20 years, if you had heart disease, all we ever talked about was fat. You know, if you had blood pressure, all we ever talked about was salt. Diabetes, all we ever talked about were carbohydrates. And now they're starting to say, hey, we have to look at that whole entire picture. It's a whole entire balancing act. And the hard part too is, well, the good news is every few years we get better and better tools. We get better and better monitors. We get better and better insulins. We get better and better
How long have you been a
mechanisms.
nurse?
26 years.
26. So you've, over those 26 years, you've seen changes.
A lot of changes.
Yeah.
In fact, when I first started into focusing my nursing career on diabetes, I went back to my nursing textbook on nutrition to dust off meal planning, because it'd been a while, and up and coming. And I went back and went, well, how long back did I take that class? And it was like 30 years ago. Up and coming was the little up and coming thing for new research, home monitoring.
Yeah.
Up until before the, you know, they're everywhere. They're relatively inexpensive. There's more expensive ones, there's cheaper ones, but 30 years ago, we didn't have a way to poke your blood sugar and say, hey, how close in the ballpark am I to being safe?
They didn't have that back then.
No, it's something that's just come out in the last 25, 30 years.
Really?
Yeah, because 30 years ago, up and coming was the home glucose monitor.
Yeah.
And before that, it was, you put some urine in a little test tube, or this little dipstick thing, and then you had to compare the color within 30 seconds.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, eyes
I
change as you get older, which is really sad, because that definition of, is it light blue, dark blue, is it teal green, little green?
Let's take this call here. Hi, you're on the air.
Good morning. I have a couple of questions.
Sure. Gotta speak up though, hon.
First off, let me ask the questions, and I'll hang up and listen.
Okay.
Okay.
I've had bariatric surgery, and I was wondering if a lot of patients with bariatric surgery end up with diabetes. Also, the next question is, I get so lightheaded, cold sweats, and if I eat a spoonful of peanut butter, I seem to regulate my body a little better, but is that part of diabetes? I'll hang up and listen.
Thanks, Sherry.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, you brought up a very good point. In bariatric surgery, depending on what kind of surgery you had, they are rerouting the whole system. So what happens a few years after bariatric surgery is that some people are very critically sensitive to too many carbohydrates at one time. And I've met just as many bariatric people that look at me and I'm like, the last 5 people I talked to can't do what you're doing. And it's very individual for each person, but reactive hypoglycemia is very common. The severe hypoglycemia, because we've rerouted where your system is digesting your food, when you have different food choices, you're going to notice that problem more often. Bariatric surgery is getting touted out as a potential cure for diabetes, and I hate to say that word because there really is no cure all the way. There is this huge step back. I mean, think about it. You've got a whole entire brand new diet because you're getting a whole new life with this surgery, and you need an incredible amount of continuous, lifelong follow-up. So if you're thinking about it, make sure you get in with a program that's going to do that good assessment ahead of time, help you figure out why filling the emptiness came from whatever food choices put that weight on there in the first place, and make sure that they hook you up with lifelong support and ongoing updates. Peanut butter is something that works for the bariatric group because their system can't tolerate a straight carbohydrate.
Would the dizziness and the lightheadedness be a
sugar drop, possibly?
It's hyperglycemia, and I had a sister-in-law, it would be a sister-in-law, that had hyperglycemia. Is that a form of diabetes?
Yeah. Hyper is when you don't have enough insulin to clear the deck of the sugar to get the sugar into the cells. Hypo is when we've cleared the deck too good. Now, it could be that our body, sometimes at the beginning of, and people that have to watch, like for the getting too low, would be any like the irritable bowel or the Crohn's, the bariatric surgery, because your system sends things through too fast. Or sometimes you get dumping syndrome, certain foods, the body just says, I'm getting rid of that right now. So sometimes your medicine to regulate your sugar is on board if that food stayed. So there can be that disconnect. Different meals, especially as your body copes with the changes that happen after bariatric surgery, you can become more sensitive to it. But usual signs of low blood sugar is that lightheaded, that sweaty, that shaky. Some people will tell me that they feel like a numbness around their mouth or like a twitch in the eye. I worked with someone whose diabetes was really progressing down, and it would be because I worked with this person, I could tell by just the way they looked, and she was very good about sharing her challenges with her healthcare with us because we were a team. And so, once in a while she'd be like, no, I'm fine. And it was like, no, I'm fine. You go take care of you for a few minutes, and if everything's fine, then I'm even happier. But a few times it was like a good thing that someone helped out. Proteins more. The carbs, you want to do them in, the teaspoon of honey is going to sink someone who has reactive hypoglycemia faster than if it was an apple. Sometimes the whole apple, even though it's only this big, you may do better with half of the apple with a little cheese or peanut butter, because you'll have that protein piece to offset the carb by itself. And once in a while, for some people, it's what other foods went with it.
You were talking about the self-monitoring. I went to lunch with a friend of mine, a gal that I worked with at radio, and she goes, I have to check my blood sugar. And she did it at the table, and it was like, it was nothing.
Yeah, it's nothing.
It's nothing. And it's like, Teresa, do you have to do that right here? And she goes, I just don't think she didn't think anything of it.
Right. Yeah. And the drop of blood is very tiny.
Yeah.
All the machines that you get at home, not the ones we use in the hospital or your doctor's office, but the ones at home, tiny. Oh my goodness, it is so tiny. You don't even have anything small enough here that would show on the screen about how much blood you need. Yeah, tiny. Like the dot of a pen is plenty. Yeah. This machine sip it into the little strip. 10 seconds later, you've got a number to know how safe are you.
Yeah.
Are you changed? Now, that number is just a snapshot. It's not the big picture. It might be 82 right now. Now, have you
What's
been
it supposed to be?
Anything under 100 when you don't have diabetes is normal.
Okay.
With diabetes, we kind of let you wiggle out to 70s to 110s. Usually your body does everything it can to keep you between 70s and 95s, sometimes 70 to 105, but usually anything under 100 is considered normal.
What are symptoms?
For diabetes, sometimes nothing at all.
Really?
You just go get your lab and it's like, oh, really? Then you get a second one, it's like, oh shoot, that did it 2 days in a row. You've got diabetes if it was 126 or more 2 days in a row. Some symptoms for some people are, they notice they're more tired. And we're all aging, and we all put on 5 more pounds, so we all kind of go, no wonder I'm tired. The job changed, or the work hours got longer, or the stress went up, and we go, well, no wonder we're tired. And that's higher blood sugar making you tired.
Isn't thirsty
a
sign?
Yeah, because the higher your numbers, you got to kind of think of it as thicker and thicker maple syrup, and the body wants to thin it out, so it makes you more thirsty. And of course, you're drinking more, so you're in the bathroom more. So you're always kind of in that fight of what's going on. Now in the summer, that's a hard one because it's hot and sweaty, you've mowed the lawn, you've picked up sticks, so you're thinking, well, of course I'm going to the bathroom more because I'm drinking more and I'm sweating more. And then you go to the fall doctor's office visits and find out it was diabetes.
Wow.
The wound healing, or colds just kind of hang around longer. You get bladder infection or a yeast infection and it just it'll go away, but all of a sudden it's right back. A lot of times colds or flus, it used to only take a week to feel better, and now you're kind of noticing it's 2 or 3 or 4 weeks to get back to where you were
Right.
before.
Right.
That's that delayed healing.
Interesting stuff. I can't believe we went over the time.
Oh, we did.
But that's okay, because it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Come back and see us, Lori, because
Oh,
I think this is a
definitely.
very, very important subject that we need to get to. See, we didn't have this outlet before where we could get this information out.
Right.
And if we just get one person to have it checked, I think that's important.
Yeah. You always want to get checked, because the worst is to just say, well, if I don't know, I'm fine. And that's where the damage happens. You know, if you wait 15, 20 years, when you do finally get to taking care of you, you're 20 years behind the line.
Yeah.
And all the research seminars and stuff I went through this summer found out that if you take it seriously at the beginning, when it's not interfering with your walking, it's not interfering with how you feel, you do better longer. You still benefit if it's 10 or 15 or 20 years later, or 30 or 40 or 50 years later, but the longest benefit and the ease of getting it down pat is always at the beginning, when you're still kind of going, well, let me go find another doctor because I don't want to know what this first one told me, you know.
I can't believe we did this whole show without one note. We had lived it. We did pretty good on that. Yeah.
You know, I wanted to mention one more thing about
Sure.
the bariatric surgery. It doesn't usually lead to diabetes. They kind of use it now as that idea of we can drastically change your meal plan, and they're finding that because of where they reroute the after effects, that it makes the body function a little better. You know, so that's why it gets toted out kind of as that cure for diabetes. But because of the way the people with bariatric surgery have, you know, with diabetes have seen what happens, they're now looking at, there's got to be more to the picture than just those first few gut hormones and insulin and what your liver does that helps balance the deck. So it's opening the door to more questions of going, what is it that's causing the diabetes? What other things can be done to help prevent it in the future, or find better ways to control it?
Okay. Very good,
Okay.
Lori. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank
Have a
you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you
And a
too.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
All right. Don't eat too much of those sweets and stuff.
No,
I know.
limit those plates.
Right.